Okay, I've mentioned him quite a bit, but today I want to talk about replacement dad. Replacement dad is my ex-wife's husband, and he earned the name replacement dad long before I decided to terminate my parental rights. And the reason that he got the name replacement dad is because she quite literally replaced me with him in my kids' lives the second that they started dating. Now this might be a little bit of a longer video because I want to make sure I get the whole story in. So initially when they started dating, he and I met. It was an awkward meeting at her house. I went to pick up my kids and all of a sudden there's this big, hairy, goofy looking, scruffy looking guy walking around the house. He and I initially had just a agree to disagree relationship. I don't think we ever thought we would be friends. However, we did attend a couple of my oldest daughter's volleyball tournaments when she was in high school. We sat next to each other, joked and laughed like two guys can. At one point, he and I had a really long, detailed phone conversation. She happened to be out of town at the time, and he had some questions for me, and a lot of the questions that he asked me were things that she had told him that were not true. And as I went through each of his questions and I told him, well, that's not true, this is actually what happened, or here's the proof of why what she told you wasn't true. And he stopped me about 2 hours in and he goes, man, why would she lie to me about all these things? My response was, I don't know, man, she's your problem now. Now, the things that she had lied to him about were pretty significant things. She had lied to him about her college education. She lied to him about how my kids learned to ride and how they learned to rope and how to handle horses. She gave him the idea that she taught the kids all of those things, which she's never trained a horse in her entire life to do anything significant. However, in that conversation, he and I determined that basically all of the important elements of her life that she had conveyed to him were not true. Now, when she returned home from her trip that she was on at that point, maybe they had a discussion. And it was at that point where he started showing pretty fierce animosity towards me every time that I would show up. Now, as far as her withholding my visitation, it got to the point where if I wanted to see my kids on my weekends, I had to go drive to the neighboring state to watch their rodeos and sporting activities, because if I chose to exercise my visitation at my house, it would mean that they would miss out on these activities that they really wanted to do. So replacement dad started the hate game. And as we moved forward, every time he would see me, it would be throwing out threats. He would be mouthing threats. He was always present with child exchanges when they actually happened, and he would say things from the driver's seat like, you come over to my side, I'll show you what's up, or I'll kick your ass right now in the parking lot type thing. And that was how he started to conduct his behavior towards me. I can only assume that he believed the words that were coming out of her mouth because all these threats were unreasonable. They were unfounded. I had not been threatening her. I had not been problematic. She had me blocked on her cell phone for most of the time, so we couldn't even communicate. So it's not like I could be telling her things that he would have to be protecting her about. However, during my entire marriage to her, I was always protecting her from somebody or something that, looking back, wasn't actually real life. So I understand that he's believing the things that she says, and he's wanting to protect her from the evils that exist in the world, just like I did. So I started early on calling him replacement dad because there wasn't a better name for him. I don't like to be foul about my language. I don't want to be condescending entirely and calling him probably what he should be called. So replacement dad seemed to me like a good name to give him. That's how the name replacement dad came to be. So when I signed over my rights to the kids, she had him so tied up that he had no way to escape. She refinanced his mortgage and put her name on it immediately, like really quickly after they got married. They bought some property together. She probably at this point has his kids under her guardianship so she can have them under her health insurance with her TRICARE. She has him wrapped up so tight, he absolutely cannot escape. Even if he wanted to, he wouldn't be able to. So she convinced him to adopt my children, made it known that I was considering signing over my rights, and as soon as they heard that, their attorney started pushing hard for it, like way hard. And he would not stop asking my attorney, and I fired my attorney from the whole process, and then they were hounding me about it, wondering when I was going to take that step, when I was going to do it, and they really pushed really hard for it. So I'm assuming that she had already coached him on what was going to happen, because we already knew what that process was going to be, because that's the same process that we did with my older two kids with her when she adopted them from my first wife. So there's a lot of information here, but replacement dad adopted my kids, which is what allowed me to be able to sign over my rights to them. In one aspect, I'm grateful to him for that, but I've seen him a couple times. The threats are still there. He still thinks that he has to protect his fair maiden in all of this process. He plays dirty pool. He's a horrible individual. However, I will say that him and her, they deserve everything each other is bringing into their lives.